Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Monday, November 6th, 2023. Welcome to day 1021. Donald Trump repeatedly provided off-topic testimony, lost his temper, and attacked the judge overseeing his $250 million civil fraud case, saying, "It's a terrible thing you've done. You know nothing about me." Trump called New York Attorney General Letitia James a political hack and her prosecutors all haters, complaining that this is a very unfair trial. The outburst prompted the New York judge to direct Trump's lawyers to control him, saying, "This is not a political rally, this is a courtroom." The AG accused Trump and his co-defendants of a decade-long scheme to use numerous acts of fraud and misrepresentation to inflate Trump's net worth and get more favorable loan terms. The judge already ruled that Trump is liable for fraud, and this trial is meant to determine what damages Trump will have to pay. Still, Trump complained during testimony that the judge called me a fraud and he didn't know anything about me. The judge suggested that Trump read the order where he found him liable for fraud. Meanwhile, a federal appeals court lifted a gag order imposed against Trump in the election subversion criminal case, temporarily allowing him to go back to disparaging prosecutors, witnesses, and court staffers involved in the proceeding. The pause will last for about 2 weeks as the 3-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for D.C. considers Trump's claim that the limited gag order violates his First Amendment rights. Moving on, UN Secretary General António Guterres warned that Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children, saying the unfolding catastrophe makes the need for a humanitarian ceasefire more urgent with every passing hour. More than 1.5 million people have already been displaced, and more than 10,000 have been killed in Gaza since Israel's bombardment began 4 weeks ago. Israel, however, rejected the Biden administration's calls for a humanitarian ceasefire, saying it will continue to bombard the Gaza Strip with all of its power. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu added, "There will be no ceasefire in Gaza without the release of our hostages," saying, "It'll hamper our effort to get our hostages out because the only thing that works on these criminals in Hamas is the military pressure that we're exerting." Israel's military, meanwhile, has reportedly completed its encirclement of Gaza City, effectively splitting the Gaza Strip in half, and was carrying out what it called a significant operation and a large attack on terrorist infrastructure both below and above ground. The Biden administration, meanwhile, has reportedly become deeply uncomfortable and distressed with some of Israel's tactics, saying the counterattack against Hamas has been too severe, too costly in civilian casualties, and lacking a coherent endgame. A person familiar with the administration's thinking says the White House has been skeptical of an Israeli ground invasion and is concerned that the situation inside Gaza would only get worse for the people there, and that would lead to escalation. Adding, "They're just trying different ways of how do you mitigate a set of actions that are inevitable and won't work and will fail." State Department staffers, meanwhile, issued a memo arguing that the Biden administration should be willing to publicly criticize Israel's military tactics and its treatment of Palestinians. The memo said, "We must publicly criticize Israel's violations of international norms, such as failure to limit offensive operations to legitimate military targets." It continues, "When Israel supports settler violence and illegal land seizures or employs excessive use of force against Palestinians, we must communicate publicly that this goes against our American values so that Israel does not act with impunity." The document also says the administration's private and public messaging contributes to regional public perceptions that the United States is a biased and dishonest actor, which at best does not advance and at worst harms U.S. interests worldwide. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditis.